All right, we are back to this vehicle. If you recognize this from about 2 months ago, the 2000 Ford Expedition, dual air conditioning, meaning it has a condenser, evaporator in the back, and it was filled up with 3 cans. Let me get my retarded fingers up. 3 cans of AC Pro. Now, if you read the can instructions and ingredients, you will see it actually has 3 ounces of a solid liquid. And yes, liquid is a solid when it comes to air conditioning and compressing. You can't compress a solid. If you know about oils, they are not a heat conductor, they are an insulator, and I don't care if you put some super magic goo in it to try to make it work a little better and it says it coats something and makes it more thermally conductive. I don't want to mention what I want to say or do about that super pro crap. So on this one, we are 9 ounces of a solid liquid added to this system. He had multiple. I ended up finding a leak in the pipe afterwards. You have to look back about 2 months ago. He went on a vacation. The guys at the shop finally replaced the line here that goes down to the top of the condenser. You can see the muffler right down there. When I came back, the high side fitting was bent and twisted over here. When I came back, this hose that they just put on was kinked really bad. You can see a slight kink in it. It's hard to see, but because it was bent up, it actually kinked the rubber hose, and I had to carefully bend it back so the high side fittings here and this is more level, so it didn't have a kink hose on it. I don't know what they bent or distorted or did on here, but for some reason this time when I came back and I went to put my low side fitting on, it was interfering. This pipe is bent back over my low side fitting, and I couldn't get a nice smooth thing. I had to do some bending and tweaking to get that over, so they bent that. I guess they had a really hard time putting that pipe on inside there and getting things. This one, the expansion valve for the front, you can see the top of it. Let's see, I get my finger, the light's almost right there. See that round? It looks like a silver dollar or quarter down there, and my finger is moving on the top of it. That is the top of the expansion valve right there. And this is one of those H-block expansion valves. The other one's in the rear of the system. In this system, I could tell they left the lines open for a long time because I can't bring down a vacuum on it and hold it. Every time I shut off the vacuum, it rises up to 3,500 microns. So even though right now I have it at 217 microns, I would turn it off, let it rise, it would go to 3,500 microns and just like come at a stop and then stop moving. No more loss. I would use dry nitrogen, and I would flush dry nitrogen because I know this is why it's doing this. They left the line off, they took it apart, and they didn't put the new line back on right away. They didn't replace the receiver right away. They left the lines open. I can't probably imagine how many days they left the lines open. Now remember, AC Pro has a leak sealant in it too that has been exposed to the atmosphere for days with moisture and oxygen. And what activates leak sealers? Okay, don't need to say no more about that. So every time I sweep the system through, I would draw it down to about 600 microns of vacuum through the low side. Then I would close off the low side, close off the vacuum, open up the high side, purge in dry nitrogen through the high side, fill it up through the high side so it could bleed through the expansion valves, through the evaporators, come back. Then I'd close off the high side. Then I would open up the low side, and I'd only have like 2-3 psi of dry nitrogen in there, and then reopen up and bleed off the little bit of nitrogen through the low side, throw it on both vacuum pumps, draw down the vacuum through the low side, down through the vacuum pumps, trying to pull out and sweep as much moisture as I possibly could off the surfaces of all the lines and the evaporator. I performed that procedure twice. It took me so long to get the vacuum down into the micron level. I've exceeded an hour in just triple triple purge and evacuate, trying to get the vacuum down really low between each purge. I like to go down below 500 microns. It was not possible on this vehicle. It's so more moisture laden. And then every time I'd pull the vacuum down, turn off the vacuum source to isolate the system, watch the meter, it would always go up to 35. So I give up. I'm on the vacuum right now. And the only reason you see 200 something right now is because it's hooked up to the vacuum source. As soon as I turn off the vacuum source, it'll rise. And if I keep it like this, it'll start leveling out, slowing down, but it'll eventually go to 3,500 and then stop right there and stabilize. And so that's a bad thing. So 9 ounces of extra lubricant in the system. And if you look over here on a single AC system, they have 10 ounces of lubricant. Well, imagine if this was a 10-ounce system, you put 3 cans of AC Pro, keep topping it off every time, you have 9 ounces of extra lubricant. But in this case, it has a rear evaporator, so it's 14 ounces of lubricant in the system. It has 9 extra ounces on top of that. Nothing we can do about that. They don't want to go through the flushing. They're just going to live with whatever happens. Now this system is 1,640 grams of refrigerant. It's a big system. And so I'm actually about to fill it up here. And actually my thing's been off for a while. Let's turn on the scale. Let's close the low side. Open the high side. Turn on scale, wait for it to contact. There it's in with the scale. Let's clear it. And now let's close the vacuum source. 1,640, and let's open. And we are now going inside. We're now filling up the refrigerant, 1,640 grams. And you get to see this live, how fast, 1,600, count how many seconds it takes to fill up 1,640 grams. Engine's off, liquid going into high side. I'm using all the gas laws to my advantage to fill this up in this method. All cars could be filled up like this, most AC units. So this is nothing special. It was done in my grandfather's day. My dad taught me how to do this. So when I was a kid, so this is not no new super technology. Being able to fill up a system in a few seconds is an everyday process. And that's it. We're a done deal. 1,600 and, well, I got a little more there. I'm going to I got to trap some in my hose. 1,655 grams. Go back on the clock from when I opened it up to now and see how fast that was. And that's all it takes. So now I'm going to do another video. I got to put my camera down, get my test probes. And this one we have a unique ability to take the temperature of this line, what my finger is going over right here. That is the compressor. No, this one right here, sorry. This new line coming out comes out of the compressor. So I could take the pressure, the temperature of the refrigerant coming out of the compressor. Then this line right here is the condenser line, where my finger is touching here, coming out of the condenser, going into a receiver dryer that's hidden back here, we can't see. So I could take the temperature of the condenser line, the refrigerant temperature, right here. And then this line down here below, what you see branch off into 2 lines, is going to the front and the rear. And this is the line coming out of the receiver dryer. So I could take the temperature from the compressor, the temperature out of the condenser, from the compressor to the condenser, from the condenser to the receiver dryer, from the receiver dryer to the expansion valves right there. So I'm able to take three temperatures really close to each other right here. So let me start this unit up and let it run about 15 minutes, stabilize all the pressures and temperatures, and let's see what we have.